The world's a crazy place, and it seems to just get crazier by the day. Am I right? Am I right? Sometimes you need somewhere to go to put it all into perspective. This is I Can't Take This Anymore. Education, family, politics, religion, social justice, racism. If it's going on in the world, we're talking about it. And your host shoots you straight between the ears with real, raw, and honest opinions. This is I Can't Take This Anymore. And this is your host, Ken Dominic.
What's up, everybody? Hey, listen, this is your boy, Ken Dominic, and welcome to another episode of the I Can't Take This Anymore podcast. Listen, I'm excited to have you on each and every week. I have some spectacular guests for you. It's been awesome. So listen, I want you to do me a favor before we go any further. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're watching or listening to. Make sure you like, subscribe, or share this, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you may be watching. This is something you need to get into your library and repeat and listen to this over and over again. I'm telling you, it is phenomenal. I'm just having a good time and having a conversation, right? And so I Can't Take This Anymore podcast. I need to make sure that you subscribe right now. I need a favor to get my listeners up, all right? So do me that favor for me. Listen, this week I have another special guest, friend and brother of mine. Listen, been known for many years, and excited to have him on with us on today. I'm telling you, he is one of the next generational leaders of our time. I promise you, he's phenomenal. So listen, I want y'all to do me a favor right there, wherever you listen to this podcast, help me welcome my friend and my brother. He's now Bishop Winton Anderson. What's up, brother? How are you?
Hey, good morning, brother. How you doing, man? It's so good to be here today. I'm excited about this, man. It's going to be good.
Yeah. Listen, I'm even more excited, y'all. If you listen by audio, you don't have an opportunity to see, but you watch my video, you see he's representing some of my favorite colors. It's nothing but the blue and gold, the Southern University. Hey, yeah. The
so it's
the S on your chest. And then folk know you the best. Hey, that's how Southern University. If you ain't been to HBCU, you really don't understand.
Yeah.
All right, so listen, I'm excited to have you on, my brother. Man, listen, how are you? How are things going?
Man, I am good. A little tired, but good, man. We've had so much happening with work and church and all kinds of stuff, right? Community stuff. And it's been great. It has been a busy season. You know how that is. So it's really about time management. So that's what we're doing, man. That's where we at today.
So listen, man, trust me, I understand time management is valuable, man, because your time is the one thing, man, you cannot ever get back. When it's gone, it's gone. And so I tell people it's more valuable than money. It's important to manage that time wisely. So listen, each and every week here in the podcast, man, we do this thing what we call like an icebreaker, and we say, I can't take this anymore, right? And so you begin and reply by saying, I can't take this anymore, and you say why. So each and every week, my listeners know I don't share the topic intentional because I don't want folk going doing research. I just want you to speak from the heart. All right. And so I want to give you this topic. And so, because the reality of the fact is, many of us, if we're honest, we have moments in our lives where we throw our hands up and we say, man, I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so this morning, your topic is, all right, next generational leadership in the Black church or community. Next generational leadership in the Black community or the Black church.
So you want me to say I can't take this anymore?
Yeah.
All right. I can't take this anymore. Because when we look at the scope of what leadership looks like and what next looks like, and you kind of talked about that, like what this next wave of leadership which I'm assuming is going to be this next generation that's coming up. Man, we got a lot of, as much good as we have going on, man, we got a lot of games going on. So that's the part I can't take. That's what I can't take, is, sliding over into doing things for likes, loves, all of that. But I think in a sense, we are missing some major components, man. That foundation had down packed, man. So if there's anything that I can't take, it's gonna be that. I can't take it anymore.
And man, listen, if we be honest, many of us, we have no clue what leadership is or what it looks like. And so, man, I've followed you a long time, and you have some great nuggets and principles in dealing with leadership. And so before we get into that, I promise we'll come back, y'all, and talk about leadership. But listen, this is one question I've asked ever since my first podcast, because I guess I asked that question too, and it really made me ponder for myself. And
Yeah.
so, and one of the things is I want to know is, who is Winton Anderson, right? If we put down the titles, the accolades, even the husband and the father, we take all of that away. If somebody saw you on the street and they asked you, who is Winton Anderson, how would you respond and why?
I would automatically say a man of integrity who loves people. And that is all types of people. I'm a lover of people. I am, without talking about titles, without talking about all of that, I would say I love people. I love music, all genres of music. I would say that I'm a son, and I am big on family. I'm a family guy, and I don't mean just wife and children. I'm talking about long before that. I have always been someone who is a lover of family. And that goes into my love for people, right? I believe I'm a change agent. I believe that I am called in all settings and spaces to help, if not make change, certainly to help foster change. I'm nostalgic. I love things that make me remember when, that make me reminisce. So I'm an old soul. So that comes with all of that. I'm a country boy who was impacted by life in the city. So that's really at the core of me. That is who I am. You can find me listening to all genres of music. You can find me in the country. You could find me swinging on the porch. That's what I love. That's what brings my heart joy.
Man, listen, you talk about being nostalgic. I could just see you right now listening to some Franklin Beverly and Mays.
That's definitely my vibe. That's definitely my vibe.
And so, man, when we begin to understand who we are, I think it catapults us into whose we are, and realizing that now past all of those things, now when he's a husband, he's a father, and now you're pastoring. And what I've discovered is, man, on my podcast, I've had the opportunity to interview, a wide range of individuals. And one of the things I find that no matter who I've interviewed, whether it be a politician, a pastor, a teacher, a business person, it's this thing called balance.
Yeah.
And so many people struggle with the work balance. And so with all those things you have going on, man, with the wife, the children, the ministry, the outside activity things that you have going on, share with us some things that you do to maintain that balance, or even share with us, man, because we want to be transparent here on the podcast. It's some moments where you feel like it got out of whack.
That's right. That's right.
Got it back together.
That's right. So one of the first things I immediately thought of while you were talking was I compartmentalize things, right? So that things don't run together. And this is an elementary practice. Let me just say that. Because for me, think about it like a plate, right? And you have this plate of food, and some people can work well when all the food is running together and they good. And then there's a group of people that cannot take the food running all together on the plate, right? Okay. All right. So because it's like that, right? Some would argue that food may lose its taste and character once it goes into something else, right? That's how I feel about kind of my life, right? And So I have learned to put everything into small compartments. And then it's easier for me to be intentional about devoting the necessary time. I'll be honest with you, Ken, some days, all that runs together, right? Some days there's a component that is left off. Some days something falls to the back burner. But I will say compartmentalization and prioritization have been the things. There used to be a time where I thought I had to touch everything because let's be honest, in ministry, sometimes you're taught, and if that's your lens, you've been kind of taught to touch everything, right? And that nothing goes undone. Now I have freed myself from that thought. So because I have freed myself from that thought, there are days, Ken, where I set my goal high, 1 through 7, I'm gonna touch today. And the reality is I leave that day touching 1 through 3 and didn't touch 4 through 7. And I'm not tripping, right? Tomorrow I can get to 4 through 7, right? So it's a compartmentalization saying, okay, this day, this thing, this time is family. This time, okay, cool, church. This time, okay, I'm meeting with members who need counseling on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, or maybe Wednesdays is the day and I'll just space that out. However that works for them, right? And then there are times where I'm like, okay, that ain't working. I'll do this. Family needs time. All right, cool. But then there's times where I need time. And after in public service, one of the challenges that we always have is that it is easier to meet the needs of others than it is for your own needs.
Man, I want to go there for a moment. You said time for you, right?
Yeah.
And I think many people don't. How can I put this? Many people don't understand the importance and value of self-care, and taking care of yourself. And so when you talk about that, because I know my pastor, man, shout out Pastor Ronaldo Hart at Love Alive Church, he's taking a whole sabbatical, from the church for a whole month. And I grew up, man, you don't leave the church, you know what I'm saying, right. But so many people struggle, man. And I want you to talk a little bit about, because you talk about that self-care. So many pastors are struggling with their mental health. In 2023, man, the suicide rate for pastors, man, it was just alarming.
Right.
And I always tell people, whatever statistics you see, you can always add 5 to 10% of that.
That's right.
Some of that goes unreported.
That's right.
So just think about that, man. And so talk about in that space of balance, man. What are some things you do for self-care? How do you manage it Winton? Like, how do you manage keeping you fresh?
So that's a good point. First things off top that I'm thinking about is being intentional about places and spaces that feed me or that fill me up. I'll give you a perfect example. We mentioned earlier being nostalgic, right? And that is a pastime, a comfort of mine that I find in something like that. So for me, going back home to Natchez, right? Like off top, that is my number one go-to, because that is the space where I don't have to exist as a public servant. That is the one space that I can go back and be Winton. That's the space where my aunts and my uncles, they don't know any of this other stuff. They know about it, but it's not the dominant thing, right? I can go to Walmart, sitting there. Those from country towns, like we can go to Walmart, walk through Walmart and find everybody from cousins to aunts to you're going to find everybody there, to friends, all of that. And so that is generally my thing, right? Once a month, you better believe, for a weekend, I'm going to Natchez. Sometimes the wife will be with me. Sometimes I'm by myself, because again, even what I do at this level, there's a space and a place that she doesn't even understand, right? And so that's big for me, to be able to go, to be able to have that time. If it's not going away, I am intentional about not preaching once a month. Most months, there is one Sunday that I am not preaching, and we'll rotate ministerial staff or something like that. I do not subscribe to that. I got to be up. I got to da-da-da, and they got to hear me all the time. I don't subscribe to that, because I do believe, Ken, we watched Pastor Ken, we watched a generation of people stand up every week, miss holidays, miss family moments, do all of that. And we watched that generation die. We watched people speak over them and say how wonderful they were. But the truth was, while they were living, they did not appreciate them. And now that they are gone, their families are left. The children are mad because they lost it. They didn't have their parent, you know, the wife or the spouse or whoever's left, the husband. They're feeling some type of way because now that church has moved on. That ministry has moved on. They've chosen to do something else. And so I always vowed that I would not be that. And I'm not just talking about for other people, because a lot of times we place emphasis on self-care as doing things for your family. But self-care is self-care. And I cannot say that enough. A dinner with my family, as much as I love them, that is family time. That is not, for me, a form of self-care, right? That because there's still a need to tend to them if I'm around. They still want something, right? My kids, they want daddy's attention. My wife, she wants her husband's, you know, so all of that kind of factors in. So I hope that makes sense. But certainly small things like getting away when you can't get away, finding your thing. Running water is kind of my thing. So any bodies of water, I would love to go sit by the Mississippi. I could go a lake. I could go something of the sort, right? Fishing, whatever I want to do. That's a form of self-care for me.
And I think that's important, man. One of the things when I was pastoring, I would always do my best to try to take a vacation with the family, take one with the wife. Then I would have a day or two by myself.
That's right.
Because, and I tell people all the time, if you're no good for you, I promise you, you're no good for everybody else.
Bro, you saying something good. You saying something good.
Oftentimes we equate our lives as being good for everyone else, but then when you're broken, those people have nothing to give to you.
That's real.
I tell my wife all the time, I want to be the best me I can be.
That's
real.
That's
not being selfish.
That's real.
That's actually being selfless.
That's real.
Because if I be the best me, then I automatically become the best version that you need me to be and my kids need me to be. And I think, man, this is a conversation that, you know, we need to have, because many people, they wrap themselves up into what they do.
That's
and
right.
When they don't have that anymore, they're lost. That's why, and I want to segue to this, we talk about leadership. That's why we got so many pastors, you 90 and you still in the pulpit on Sunday.
That's right.
Because you have wrapped your identity up in the pulpit.
That's right.
And most of them, when they retire, they die 6 months to a year later.
That's right.
Because they don't have a life outside of that. And so when we talk about this next generational leadership, right, let's talk about, first of all, what is effective leadership? Because everybody's in leadership is not effective. Yeah. And so share with us, what are some things you subscribe to as effective leadership?
Okay. First of all, I believe effective leadership is rooted in direction, right? I think that leadership, in short, is the ability to influence people to lean in a direction that is going to be beneficial both for them and for whatever the greater cause is, right? And I did that broad enough not to just lean into church, right? Because the reality is we have a generation that's going to bounce between church and marketplace. And so, but they're still leaders. And so what do we do in leadership? We inspire people and influence them to lean in a direction that ultimately we believe is the right direction, that is going to both benefit them and is going to benefit whatever organization or cause that they're attached to. So at first, you need direction. You need to be a visionary of sorts, right? When you are leading people, you need to be able to hear from something and or somewhere. In our case, it would be God, right? But for the person who's watching, who doesn't really believe in God or something, you need to be able still to have some level of direction, to hear from something and or someone that you trust to be able to move this thing forward. Then secondly, you need to be relational. I don't care what anybody says. I know we are getting out of relationship now, right? Like there is this big push. Even before pandemic, I'm not going to blame it on pandemic. It was before pandemic where people who are socially challenged are in leadership positions. So they may be good visionaries, but the people who have to follow them don't feel them because they don't do people on the slick, right? And
Well,
so,
hold on. I can't let you slide by that. Now, you just said something now. You said people in leadership. Okay, wow, this is mind blowing. People in leadership who are socially challenged. So how can you effectively lead when you don't like people?
So I would argue that you have to love people. Let's talk about ministry first. You got to love people to effectively lead people, because people will follow you. Even if your path is unclear, people will still follow you because they love you and because they know that you love them. But, and this goes back to the pastors of the early days. You know, we are always ragging on the older pastors, but let me just pause and say that those pastors had fellowship down packed. That is what they did. They were the ones who got up at 12 and 1 and 2 a.m. to go to these people's houses. They were the ones who would be there at these court cases for these grandchildren and children. And they were the ones who would then, the courts would call the pastor was a reputable witness to speak on somebody's behalf. That was back when that was valued. And so those pastors with third grade and fourth grade educations, they were able to stand and preach the word of God to a packed church because the church understood that if nothing else, if that pastor was uneducated, if that pastor didn't have it all together, if that pastor was still struggling with some, that it did not, they loved people, and people will come where they feel loved. And now here we are in a generation where you can't pull 6 pastors at a table without it being an ego contest or somebody throwing their weight around. And if we follow these pastors back home to the churches that they pastor and survey the people and ask them, do you feel as though your pastor loves you? I think we would be shocked at some of their responses.
Man, I think that's vitally important. You talk about their relational piece and being loved. That's effective leadership when you can build that ship with the people you have to serve. Nobody wants to follow nobody they don't like. You know what I'm saying? And so, but you tapped into something, man. You talked about, because this is the I Can't Take This Anymore podcast. So we get to push buttons on here. This ain't Pastor Ken right now. This is Ken. So I get to push some buttons that I normally wouldn't push, right? And so you said something. You can get 6 pastors to a table without it being an ego trip. And Doc, how many members you got? Doc, Doc, did you kill the house on Sunday? Man, that, and so the question becomes, can we sit at the table and can I call you Winton? Can I call you Ken? Can I call you Thomas? Can I call you Leo? Why is that always a necessity when we at the table? And I want to say this because I've had this conversation with some people who want, quote unquote, so much church. Like, why y'all got to be all that? Why, man, And so, because somebody said, well, Ken, nah, man, that's Pastor Ken. I'm like, nah, man, that my mama named me. You know what I'm saying? My name, if on my birth certificate, it does not say pastor, reverend, elder, bishop, overseer, none of that. It says Kendrick.
That's
M.
right.
I ain't telling y'all my middle name, but yeah, Kendrick M. I got 2 middle names. C. Dominic, right? And so let's have this conversation. Why is there so much necessity that we hung up on titles that we can't even fellowship and feel like if I don't call you by your title, I'm disrespecting you?
All right. So let's do that twofold, because there are, in every situation, and I know you've experienced this, there are a group of people who will refuse to call you something because that's not how they see you. Can we agree with that?
Yes.
You are Pastor Ken Dominic in these spaces. there are a group of people who would say, if he ain't got no church, he ain't Pastor Ken Dominic, right?
Right.
Okay. They refuse to acknowledge. That's a personal thing. They refuse to acknowledge. And we got to own that, Ken, that some people don't call you something because they don't want to. Let's just be honest. It ain't because it's not because they can't. It's because people will tend to call you what makes them comfortable. So if I call you Ken, that means I'm bringing you from whatever things that you've accomplished and whatever, and I can now normalize who you are and bring you into my space and deal with you how I want to deal with you. So now, no reverence, no whatever, I can just call you Ken. On the flip side of that, now that's the group of people who intentionally do that. Then there's another group of people, though, who, when this is all they know, it's all they have. And I want to park there because that's a major component. Yeah. When church or when at one setting is all you know and it's all you have, then that becomes your identity. And so if you take the reverend off of my name and all I do is church, who am I? You've just reduced me to nothing, because in my mind, this is who I am. Okay. But for those of us who sit in between marketplace and ministry, and we navigate bivocationalism, where I can come into a space and be Winton Anderson, and these people don't know. Now I'm at an HBCU. So again, most people do know, right? Because it's a little bit of a different dynamic. But if I was somewhere else, people would not know Bishop. They wouldn't know Pastor. They wouldn't know that. They know whatever my title is at work. And that is what, they know me as. And I think that is so important, Ken, that the next generation and our generation, that we learn to do more than church. And let me tell you, there was a time when church, and I'm talking about natural now, I ain't talking about spiritual. There will be time when church was able to sustain the leader. We have moved into a day that unless you have a mega church, 9 times out of 10, that church is no longer the only thing that's sustaining the leader. Therefore, leaders in our generation better be more than reverend. You better be more than elder. You better be more than bishop. You better go get you something. You know what I'm saying? Go find some other streams of income, and those streams of income will help you to be wider in your approach.
Yeah, I think it's important too, man. You said that find you something else to do.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to go to church 7 days a week.
Right.
Like I'm with you. I love God, but I don't want to go to. It's more to me that just seeing me on Sunday. And so, and I brought that up because I see so many times we get around. Now, I know for me, and this is my thing. Like when we in church, and we, in front of other people, I get it, right? Because for some people, that's that level of the respect that you have, right? And so, but I just feel like, man, sometimes when we're around us preachers and we get together, it is like, man, and that's one thing I've always respected about you. When we in church, okay, it's Pastor Ken, it's Pastor Winton, Pastor Anderson, whatever, right? But when we're together, man, it's what's up, bro? You good? And it's not like all this, hey man, how you doing? I'm blessed and highly favored. I'm walking in like man, I ask you how you doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so the normalization in this area in church, I see the struggle with so many people trying to figure out, who am I? Who am I outside of these things, right? And so there's a plethora of people who may be watching this podcast, right? And they're having these moments right now. And even when we talk about, well, before I want to go there, I want to come back to something you said. You talked about getting you something else and being bivocational if your church can't afford you, right? And so what I've seen lately is a trend is a lot of these I just turned 46 a couple weeks ago, but a lot of these young pastors, you know, I'm gonna say it, and you don't have to say it. I'm gonna say it. I feel like they raping these churches
Yeah.
To sustain a lifestyle. You know what I'm saying, that you want, but really the people can't afford. And I remember, I can't remember what preacher was made the statement and said, "It's a shame before God that your soup costs more than your offering on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
It's a shame before God that
Yeah.
your wardrobe, you have more in your wardrobe than you do in your library."
Yeah.
And so let's have that conversation for a moment when we talk about, money, right? And I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but we're gonna talk about
Yep.
money. What is, in your opinion and your expertise, is fair compensation for the preacher? And you can, split it up based upon church size and all that kind of stuff. But when we talk about money, what is fair compensation, right? And in that process, I want you to ask this $1 million question. Should the preacher get paid?
Yeah, church size. Let's start there. I think, Lord, no, let me not start there, because church size does not equate to church dollars. So there was a time, let me say this, there was a time where Bishop like Eddie Long, when we started seeing the introduction of those kind of blow ups of the expansion of churches, right? And we would go from, at that point, we were going from a stipend of sorts into salaries that were percentages of the take all of the ministry, right? So in other words, a pastor may have 6% of the take all, which was not a standard salary, which helped because if you took $60,000, but the church had ballooned over time, and now the church was bringing in all of this money and you were still stuck at 60. So that was kind of a way to make sure that if the church grew, that you would be sustained with the growth, 6% of whatever the church brought in. Now, of course, that was more city metro type. We didn't see that in the deep South and in the country, right? However, we went from, if you remember, free dinners after church at a member's house. So the pastors in the country, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 churches, right? Because they're passing through, and none of them have services every Sunday. We didn't grow up having church every Sunday in the Baptist church in the country. You normally have first and third or second and fourth. And then your pastor was at their other church on the opposite Sundays, or so ours had 3 or 4 churches, right? And so we would just kind of go where that pastor went. However, there was somebody assigned to cook them dinner, a steady place that they would have dinner after church or something of the sort. They go by a member's house. And at that time, love was shown through food. Somebody would bake some cake. Somebody would, my grandmother, she always would put the pastor's stuff somewhere else. We could not touch that, right? But that was love for them. And of course, they put some change in the pastor's pocket, but nothing like salary. I wouldn't even call it salary. And then we moved over into that salary, where people started getting paid, compensated. At that time, remember, musicians and staff workers, which were volunteers at that time, still were not paid. It was hard enough to compensate the pastor during that time, right? And nor were musicians asking, and nor were singers asking, right? So there was that component. You just had sister such and such, she belonged to the church. That's a whole nother ball game, and we're gonna have to tackle that a whole nother day about people who were members of the church helping their church versus people who were hired by the church to assist the church. And that's a totally different ball game. But back then it was that. I walked us from there to now to say, we've seen progressions of what salary over time looked like. And as cost of living, as pastors took less churches, I believe there was more of a desire, I should say, for people to be sustained by one church. Okay. I don't think there should be a number that is standard. What I do believe is that you could have a church of 700 people and literally take up $1,000 a Sunday. And the question becomes, should you give 500 a week? Absolutely not. Not if that is half of what that church brought in. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Your bills alone are going to cost more than what you brought in, usually, unless your church is paid off and so on and so forth. So those are things we have to consider. So I would say pastors must be. Now, again, can we acknowledge too, Pastor Ken, that some pastors ain't pastoring and they are preaching and not pastoring. And so they don't even know that their church ain't bringing in but $1,000.
Okay, now you can be a message for real. And I'm going to bring you back on a whole nother one. Because that's a pet peeve of mine. But go ahead. I digress. Go ahead.
So they don't know. They don't know that the church is bringing in $1,000 a week. So here they go asking for $700 a week, and you don't know that you are robbing that church. Or you're mad because that church says we can't give you $700 a week. And if you knew, because you cared about the numbers, if you knew these numbers, you wouldn't even ask for $700.
You probably wouldn't. You probably would realize I really deserve two.
There we go. And so the reality is, I'm looking at trends at my church, right? And I'm not in the money pot. But I'm looking at printouts. I'm looking at numbers, and I'm gauging those numbers to see if this makes sense, because I'm not the only paid person on staff at the church. And so I'm paying attention to watch and see what the trends look like. What do we look like in 2020 when I got there, pre-pandemic, and now what do we look like, right? And with growth, what does that look like? And is the first thing I do give myself no. It's the first thing I do tell somebody I need more money. No, what we're doing is looking at the trends. And then the church says, oh, okay, all right, we're trending upwards. Okay, cool. Let's make sure we honor. And because honor looks bigger than a paycheck, I could take less if I know I'm valued.
Oh. Man, say that again. That was good.
I could take less if I know I'm valued. If I know that I'm appreciated, your $250 a Sunday would not offend me if you really honor me.
And I think that's part of, man, we would talk about honor. And listen, I brought up that the whole money piece because I've noticed not just recently much, but it's gotten worse. But the last 5 to 7 years, and talking with different pastors across the country, man, and seeing, this younger generation, they have no clue, and they're not willing. And most of them, they're not pastors; they're hirelings, as you alluded to, right? And so, and you can't expect people to value what you don't value.
There you go.
And if you don't value yourself and your craft, man, I live by this principle, and we'll move on in just a moment. I live by this principle, and it's crazy. It's from the movie Drumline, right? The first one. And you remember when the guy, I don't remember his name, but it was Nick Cannon, when they realized he could not read music.
Yeah.
And he got in the office and he says, how can you call yourself a musician?
Yeah.
And you don't take time to study your craft?
Yeah.
Now, out of the rest of that movie, for me, and that was probably, 15, 20 years ago now?
Yeah.
That one line has stuck out to me.
Absolutely.
And I think has been instrumental for me in my preaching and whatever I'm doing. How can you call yourself this and you at least take the time out to study, right? And so you have transitioned, man, through a variety of things, man, and where you are now. And I'm excited, to call you Bishop. And so, I want you to talk about, we have a few minutes left. I want you to talk about that whole process. what did that process give somebody, we can't say it all, but give somebody a sneak peek into what that process is. And I'm asking, I want to tell you why I'm asking that question. Because, now you can be a pastor on July 1st and you can be a bishop on the 15th. You know what I'm saying? You can be an apostle on the 21st, and then by August 1st, you can be archbishop. So and so I know, because I'm also a part of that Reformation, Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship, and I understand that it's very reputable. And so just share with somebody that process on what that kind of looked like and how you came out of that different than you did before you went in.
All right. So let me just say, I am big on legitimacy in the kingdom. I am so big on legitimacy because of what you just said. I have been offered a lot of things from a lot of places, promises, all kinds of stuff, and none of which I valued or wanted because my legitimacy would be in question. Full Gospel probably has one of the most legitimate Episcopal processes that there is. Let me just go on and put that out there. But I will also say it is not a quick and easy process. This is not $14.99 and shipping and handling, and you get your garments and you good. No, this is a true test of your character. It's a test of what you believe. It's all of that. And so from that, the start of that journey, which is being nominated, being selected, your name going before the bishop's council, your name passing through your regional bishop, which shows what? It shows that in order to do this, there must be a group of people who sit at the top of the organization that have confidence in your ability, hear this, not to become a bishop, but to start the Episcopal process. It starts with that vote of confidence that says, okay, he or she can go forward in this Episcopal training. At that point, you are literally a candidate. You're a bishop candidate. You are episcopally being trained, right? You are learning about the foundation of the church. By the way, we are inquisitor nator is the term that we use for defenders of the faith. That is what you become. And so they prepare you to properly not only represent the faith, but to properly be able to defend the faith. And to do that, you must know the faith that you stand on. And so they walk us through all of that process. We met in several places. We flew, a group of us, there was 11 of us, my Episcopal brothers, and we have one sister on with us. And we flew to different places, and we would spend rigorous training. And this training is equivalent to classroom seminary, one of the best, trained by one of the best, Bishop Andy Luter, who people know in every Reformation, by the way. There are people, I could say his name, and it rings in Kojic, it rings in PAW. I mean, people know Bishop Luter. And so that process takes time. And let me just say this, Ken, is bigger than learning stuff in a classroom. The implication of elevation is that things in your life have to go crazy before you go to the next level. So while we're dealing with class and learning, then you are tested in life and in ministry. And all of this stuff has to go crazy while you're doing this to validate who you are. And so when we completed that process, then you're voted on again, a second layer of confidence that you are now prepared to not only represent whatever organization you're a part of, but that also people still have faith in you to be who you say that you are. And from there, And let me tell you, it's an investment of time. It's an investment of money. It's an investment of your talent. It's all of that pulled together. And so for the person who thinks that this is what they want and they want to hurry up and get it overnight, my question is, one, why, right? But two, what would you be able to serve at a greater level? Because anytime you're elevated, it is literally an elevation of service. And so a lot of times people want to be elevated to bishop, archbishop, whatever they want to do, and then do nothing but sit in one of those big high back chairs and look at everybody else. Okay.
I mean, I think I appreciate you. Let me say that I appreciate you for sharing with us an insight into that, because I'm sitting there, I'm listening, and I'm just taking it all in, man. And somebody need to hear that, and just take full gospel out of it. It's just the process itself. And when you go through that process, you appreciate the title is given to you much more, and you have a greater value for it because of the sweat and tears and the sacrifices you've had to make to do that. And so if you're able to share with us real quickly one or two things that you learned through the Episcopal process that you didn't know before you went in.
Culturally, traditionally, we, as in Baptist Church, had not used the term bishop much. Every once in a while, you'd run up on a Baptist church with the bishop, right? But we were taught by way of culture, not by way of doctrine, but by way of culture, that Episcopal lineage, we were taught to separate that and to give that to the Church of God in Christ. Long story short. And we were taught that it did not fit into our model of church. And when I went into this Episcopal training, I learned that this Episcopal model has less to do with preference and more to do with early church and what it looks like, right? And so whereas we tried to separate, the Episcopal order remains in church no matter what you call these titles. We say reverend, but reverend is nowhere in the Bible. Hello. But we have a challenge saying elder. I don't, but we claim to be Bible based. And so a lot of the stuff we were taught that was reserved for one group, we learned that this is very much so a part where I was able to go back and teach this in my Bible studies and teach this in my church so that when they hear these words, they don't associate it with a reformation as much as they understand that it is in the Word of God, right? That was a piece. That was biblical. That was that piece. But I learned the second part about myself. And what I learned about myself was it is your service that qualifies you for elevation. And through this process, I have had to learn to not shy away from or diminish the work and the sacrifice that has gotten me to this point. Because a natural human instinct is that when we get in a room that we feel honored to be in, but also kind of like, I don't know, then we reduce and we shrink ourselves. But I learned to stand, and let me just say this, I'm still learning to stand on, and every time somebody calls me bishop, I am having to readjust myself, right? Because in my mind, I want to say, oh, you ain't got it. But in my heart, I'm like, oh no, you got to stand on this. And you got to, this is an honor. This is not a, This isn't an attachment. This isn't some type of something you throw on and take off. No, when people call you that, it is because you have worked and you have served, and God has in turn honored you with greater influence.
I mean, I think it's important, man. And so thank you so much, man. I appreciate that, because I think somebody need to hear that. It's an arduous process, and we have allowed we have looked at it from a very myopic, I say, approach, small-minded approach to it. And when you look at it from a bigger perspective, a macro perspective, it's a lot of work that goes into it. And you said something I want everybody to make sure you hear, that it's biblical, right? It's not something that you do because you just want to do it, but it's biblical. And whenever there's biblical applied to it, there's a process that goes along with it. And so I'm encouraged by that. And so, man, listen, as we close out, I do this thing every week with my guests, and I give them a list of words, and you say the first thing that come to your mind. All right. Now, well, let me do this before I do that, because that's a lighter note. But I just want you to give, take a minute, man. There's somebody who's listening, whether they're in church, their business, school, family, marriage, whatever it is. There's somebody who's listening that got their hands up and they're saying, I can't take this anymore. I want you to give you a moment to encourage that person that when they can't take this anymore, encourage them through their process that they can keep on going.
Absolutely. We often talk about, I think it's out of Psalm 50 or 51, where David records that the anger of the Lord is but for a moment, but in his favor there is life. And that when we are called to, when we believe in God and when we are sons and daughters, we are the favored of God. And after that, it says, and we only say it at funerals, and I don't know why we only say it at funerals, but we say it, then it goes on to say, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And I think it's interesting that it mentions the anger of the Lord being but for a moment, but in his favor, there being life. And I want to speak to someone today that even in what you may be dealing with, your frustration, in the gaps of things that have not happened. Maybe you're standing somewhere in the middle between manifestation, between promise and manifestation, that ultimately you need to understand that wherever God assigns you, whether that is a season of grief, whether that is a season of elevation, wherever God places you, he never places you in a place without giving you life. And so my hope and my goal is that you not rest in just what you're going through, but that you understand that because you are the favored of God and because he has placed you in whatever place that he has placed you in, you ultimately have received the life that he desires for you to have. And so it may feel like you are dying. It may feel like you are falling out. But the reality is, even in that rough place, he is still giving you life. And so receive life today, receive life in this season, receive the favor of the Lord, and understand that the promise of the Lord is temporary inconvenience for permanent improvement. So it really does get better.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I need to get myself to get out of that one, man. Thank you for that. And so hold on. It's not the end. It's going to get better.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that, man. So listen, we close out this thing. I give you a word and you say the first thing that comes to your mind, right? And so here we go. All right. Don't be alarmed by the first word. All right. Niggas.
Flies. Somebody watching ain't gonna get that. Somebody ain't gonna get it, but somebody is gonna get it.
I can't get to the next one. Okay. Negroes.
Civil rights.
African Americans.
Soul food.
The justice system.
Bias.
The educational system.
In trouble.
The black family.
Broken but strong.
The black church.
Evolving yet again.
The LGBTQA.
Growing community.
This one is for kicks. Donald Trump.
Orange.
I wasn't expecting that. Orange, okay. Now you made me feel bad because my background is orange. For the record, I am not a Donald Trump supporter. I rebuke that in every spirit. So listen, man. Listen, thank you so much for having the conversation, man. This has truly been fun, enlightenment. But I want to hold on to some of the words you said. Hang on in there. Hold on. It's going to get better. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is going to come in the morning. And so, man, I want to say thank you so much for your time, man, and your sacrifice for being a part of this. Listen, it does not go unappreciated. And I'm saying thank you, man. So I want to certainly give a shout out to man, listen, your wife, your kids.
Absolutely.
Many people don't know our kids go to the same school. One of them in the same class with each other.
Yeah.
So man, we get to share a lot of memories through that. But we certainly thank God for you, man. Listen, real quickly, tell us how people can follow you. Also, give us the name of your church and your service times. So we will definitely want to make sure we in full support.
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram at Winton R. Anderson. You can follow me on Facebook at Winton R. Anderson. Church name, Greater Philadelphia Baptist Church in Slaughter, Louisiana, right outside of Zachary. 10:45 service times. Christian education hour starts at 9:45. Victory in the Word Bible study. It's at 6:30 on Wednesdays. And we got a lot going on. July is rest month. So we have services every Sunday, but we do not do the meetings and stuff throughout the week. So pick us up back in August if you need Bible study, whatever you may need. But certainly Sundays, 10:45. Join us about an hour, 15 hour, and 20 minutes, and we're out of there, y'all. But we are having some amazing worship and an amazing word. So I hope to see y'all there. I look forward to you all following. I look forward to it. Thanks, Ken. Ken, this has been awesome, man. This has been good, bro. This has been good.
God bless you, man. Listen, I want to tell everybody, I hope y'all didn't miss it because he was talking kind of fast. He by one of the only churches in Louisiana that still have Sunday school. So make sure.
Amen. And let me tell y'all, let me just say this. The farther we get away from this, the more concerned I'm getting, because when I talk to these children, they can't do Bible drills. They can't do none of this stuff we used to do. They don't know no word. I'm trying to figure out what is going on. So we still have Vacation Bible School. We still have Christian Education Hour. I told you, I love it. I am probably one of the few young pastors that loves that stuff, man. It was so vital for us. And I'm so excited to see, now we do it a new way, but it's still the foundational principle stuff of growing each other up and growing ourselves up in the faith. So I'm excited about that.
So y'all call it what, the Christian education now?
Christian education now.
That's the bougie way of saying it's Sunday school.
It's Sunday school.
Y'all still got the Sunday school books?
No. So we do our own curriculum. We're gonna talk about them books later on too, because that's an ordeal in itself. But Yeah.
You know our brother, this to be messy.
Yeah,
so
I
listen,
know.
y'all, thank y'all so much. We appreciate you. Listen, the best is yet to come for you. It's not over until God says it's over. Listen, I don't shy away from it. I'm a pastor, preacher by trade. This is what I do. Love God with all of my heart, mind, body, and soul. And I still believe he is the reason for every season, not just Christmas, but every season. He is the reason. So we honor him for that. Thank you again, Bishop Winton Anderson.
Absolutely,
man. We're super proud of you on your elevation, and we are believing God to do more in you and through you for not just yourself, your family, your ministry, but the community, man. This city, this state needs to hear what God is speaking to you in this time. And so, man, I love you and I appreciate you. Hey, remember, click share, click like, subscribe to this, turn your notifications on. I'm telling you, this is a podcast you don't want to miss. And I want to pray for you and let you know that you are truly loved and valued by the God that we serve. Hey, until next time, this is your boy, Ken Dominic, Bishop Winton Anderson. We love you. Same time next week. We see you there. Peace. We out of here.
You've been listening to I Can't Take This Anymore. Real, raw, and honest opinions on everything from education, family, politics, racism, religion, social justice, and everything in between. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Instagram and Twitter at Take This No More, on Facebook at I Can't Take This Anymore. And don't forget the website at www.takethisnomore.com. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.